Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing great out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I hope everyone's been having a great week out there so far. There's a good bit to talk about in this morning's video. And the first thing, of course, we'll cover is today's weather. We'll speak on current conditions, the latest outlooks, and then we'll break down the country section by section. There's a few states that we will zoom into, get a little bit more detailed on, that do run the higher risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity and a flash flooding threat. Seems like I've just repeated those same words over the last several weeks in the morning videos, but the pattern has just pretty much supported the same thing. And it's just that time of the year where we just get kind of repetitive setups. So we'll get very detailed on today and tonight's weather. After we get done doing that, we'll speak on the days to come and the pattern that will continue to support what we call a zonal flow. So a pretty large area is going to continue to run the risk of severe weather over the next several days. Now, when we say run the risk of severe weather, that doesn't always mean we're going to have outbreaks or anything like that. So let's not get it twisted here, but there is going to be a pattern that supports just rounds after rounds of strong and severe thunderstorm activity. So we'll speak on all that and talk about the pattern. And then we'll round the video off by speaking on the tropics, watching just that stalled frontal boundary around Florida. It could develop a low pressure, and this could gain tropical characteristics. And we just got to watch it. I think regardless, it's going to bring some heavy rain along the southeast coastline. But does it, do something sneaky, take a name? Andrea is the first name out of the list of names for this hurricane season in the Atlantic. I doubt it, but you never know. We see it happen almost every hurricane season where a name sort of slips up on us. And we end up with a weak tropical storm from what we call homegrown activity. So we'll speak on that, and then we'll round the video off with a Bible devotion. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. So we do have a lot of energy surging across the middle of the country, just an active flow, sort of in the, the greens and the yellows, and even the kind of the dark yellows and oranges. This is more so just a heavy rainfall. Down here in Kansas, we have more like storm activity, some that are strong. Nothing severe right this second. We're not getting any severe thunderstorm warnings or anything like that, but just a lot of energy over the middle of the country. Then we got some rain dancing around Florida. This is from that stalled frontal boundary. It's just getting to the time of the year where these cold fronts don't clear Florida. I mean, it's hard enough to do it in the winter for the southern tip of Florida, but it's kind of stalled out down here. And sometimes if just areas of energy, hangs out over the open waters, it's that time of the year where the waters are around the upper 70s, low 80s. So just warm enough to support some subtropical or tropical activity. Sometimes that ends up happening. So we'll speak on that pretty heavy at the end of the video. But watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have flood watches across the middle of the country, stretching from a few counties in Texas all the way up into Missouri and a few states in between. Even a winter weather advisory, a couple of them up here in the Rockies of Montana. But elsewhere, we do have flood watches across the southern tip of Florida. Heavy rain continues to be in the forecast for you folks. Watches, warnings. Well, I'm sorry, this is actually, we just did that. Storm Prediction Center outlook here everywhere this morning. A slight risk stretching from right here where Missouri, Illinois, Iowa come together, and then it gets all the way down to the middle sections of Texas. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. There is a chance this will upgrade to an enhanced risk for someone. But as of right now, around 7 a.m. time I'm making this video, just a slight risk. And as of right at this second, tornado threat is at a 2% risk, stretching from north of Madison, Wisconsin, all the way down to central Texas. And, just kind of zooming in a little bit more here, 2% risk here. So could end up upgrading to a 5% risk as of now, just 2. Wind threat. If you live in this yellow area, that's where we have a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. Within 25 miles of any given location, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Angelo, Abilene, up to Oklahoma City, Tulsa, Joplin, Springfield, Kansas City, all the way up to Burlington, Iowa. You guys are all included in this, even including like Wichita. So the hail threat, a little bit smaller, more confined to the southern area of this severe weather threat. Southeast Kansas all the way down to the heart of Texas, right through the middle of Oklahoma. 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. Just remember, some of these outlooks could change. The excessive rainfall outlook, I do want to mention Florida. We zoom in here. The southern tip of Florida does run that 15% risk of flash flooding. And then we go to the middle of the country. the yellow area, that is a 15% risk of flash flooding occurring here, pretty much right where the threat of severe weather is. So a lot of rain could fall over the next 24 to 36 hours in these areas. So breaking down the southeast first, here's a broad look at things. And as we make our way over the next 24 hours, most of the action is going to be at the bottom of your screen in Florida. You just see a lot of storm activity, heavy rain, storms, just kind of, it does even have a little bit of a spin to it. If you look, it's kind of going like this. So some sort of broad lower pressure really developing down here, but are we going to get some sort of central lower pressure area? So like what we call low level circulation. We just have to watch that over the next 48 to 72 hours. But we start to get into tomorrow morning, and rain starts to push further north into southeast Georgia, even into the low country of South Carolina eventually, and just slugs of showers and storm activity here in like the northern Bahamas, and even activity still dancing around here on the Gulf side. So just taking a closer look at Florida here, a lot of activity, but it's going to be kind of difficult to figure out exactly where all this activity is going to hang out, but it really is affecting like the Florida Keys, but we got storms dancing around Florida. We got some energy sort of moving back into the east coast of Florida. We got storm activity around Tampa, pretty much anywhere in Florida, especially the northeastern, and then basically from Gainesville, really Orlando Point south, a lot of storm activity. This is 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m., 11, midnight, and then we get after midnight tonight. And a lot of this energy begins to surge north, but we're still going to continue to get storms that are possible. Even if it doesn't show anything waking up tomorrow morning in central Florida, we very well could be waking up to a lot of storm activity. But rainfall between now and about 8 p.m. tomorrow, pretty much everywhere in Florida has an opportunity to see rain, but the peninsula could get 1 to as much as 3 inches of rain, especially Miami. They're going for around 3 inches of rain over the next 36 hours, so a lot of rain will fall down here. Now, the northeast, it's pretty quiet. It's a beautiful day. There's nothing to speak on. We get into this evening, the overnight hours, all the way into tomorrow morning. There's your 10 to 15 seconds of fame. Hope you guys are doing well up there. Your weather looks phenomenal. Nothing to speak on. Now, we get into the south central U.S., different story. A lot of energy surging through. You can see that low pressure kind of ejecting across the plains. See the storms developing and making their way sort of west to east across Kansas and Oklahoma, northern areas of Texas. But all of it looks mainly linear, which is really going to dampen any kind of tornado threat, thankfully. But we'll have to watch some storms kind of, around northern New Mexico, southern Colorado also. But just kind of a wave of storms, if you will. This is getting into this evening, the overnight hours. And we could have a stronger line of storms that sort of sinks southward across middle Texas and kind of after midnight tonight, so we'll watch for that. But just zooming into individual states here, here's northern Texas, and we take it into about midday, not a whole lot going on. Then 4 p.m., some scattered severe storms could begin to develop. San Angelo to Abilene up to Wichita Falls. I think a lot of this energy will begin to kind of congeal more so into a line. This is 7 p.m., storms between Abilene and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And then we start to get to 10 p.m. We see the storms still hanging out around. As you guys know, the short-range model guidance isn't going to be always be exact conclusions. It does the best it can. But, we get to about 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, kind of a line of storms. A lot of this kind of loses its forward motion. So some storms could dance around some of the same areas, really in Texas, where there's not a lot of flow kind of pushing these storms west to east. So a line of storms around midnight could develop along the corridor between Abilene to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And eventually these storms could sag south, hit San Angelo down to Waco, eventually get all the way down to College Station and Austin as we're waking up tomorrow morning. So we head on up to Oklahoma. We get to about midday, not a whole lot going on. Then boom, right in about the early afternoon period, strong to severe storms do begin to develop. And it really favors central Oklahoma, which is right where we have the slight risk. And some of these could produce a tornado. This is 4 p.m. You see kind of the purples and the whites in some of these cells. These could be quite intense, guys. So large hail is possible, some damaging winds. I could see an enhanced risk issued in this area right in the middle of Oklahoma. This is 7 p.m. storms moving right over Oklahoma City into the Tulsa area, Lawton, and eventually all this stuff begins to get into eastern Oklahoma later in the evening. This is 10, 11, midnight, and most of it begins to get into Arkansas or southeast Oklahoma. But this is going to fire up pretty early in the afternoon. I mean, this is 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Very stormy several-hour period in central Oklahoma. And I do want to show you, let's look at this, how much rainfall could happen in Oklahoma between now and the next 36 hours. An inch or two. When you get into this red area, that's over 2 inches of rain that is forecast. Stillwater, 2 inches. Oklahoma City, 1.5 to 2 inches of rain is possible. We head on over to Arkansas, and it really doesn't get active, if it will, until late evening, midnight. We got some storms that do try to make it into western Arkansas, and then we got some storms that will greet you guys up near Fayetteville and surrounding towns and cities around sunrise tomorrow. But it looks like most of the state will be fine. We just got to watch out for the northwest corner. And then we head up to Kansas. We're already dealing with activity this morning, but more activity will develop, more than likely around an outflow. Hutchinson, Hayes, Salina, Manhattan, Topeka, even down here into Wichita. 2 p.m. Pretty intense thunderstorms begin to develop, especially for the eastern, southeastern, southern areas of Kansas. This is 3 p.m., 4 p.m. You see those storms surging across the southeastern portion of the state. 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m. Come on, 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10. And it looks like you get about closer to midnight, things calm down. Kind of like Oklahoma, same thing. Storms re-intensify early afternoon, then sweep across the rest of eastern Kansas very slowly throughout the next several hour period after that. So if we look at how much rainfall could happen over the next 36 hours or so, a good bit of rain could fall in eastern Kansas. You get into the red area, over 2 inches of rain is what's forecast. So definitely a good bit. Now we get over into Missouri, dealing with some activity this morning. Could get some heavy storm activity in northern areas of Missouri, Kansas City also. And then we start to get, say, the middle of the afternoon. A nasty line of storms could begin to enter and impact northern Missouri. 5 p.m., 6 p.m., storms begin to really dive deeper into Missouri. 7 p.m., 8 p.m. Storms are very slow moving. I mean, not a lot of forward motion, kind of like what we talked about in Texas just a second ago. It's not a lot. It's a clean sweep through for the most part, but it's a slow sweep through. But this is 8 p.m. Storms going through the middle of Missouri, Columbia, up to Quincy, getting impacted. And then we start to get to 10 p.m. And these could produce tornadoes, just the low risk of it. Midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. A lot of heavy rain could accumulate here in Missouri. Then we get into 7 a.m. But, speaking on how much rain could fall in this region, 36 hours. And that means a good bit between now and 7 p.m. Wednesday. 3 to 4 inches of rain in Columbia, Clinton 2 to 2.5, Kansas City over 2, St. Louis not as much, but central northern Missouri 1 to as much as 2.5 inches of rain is likely. So a lot of rain on the way. Up here in the north central U.S., there's one state we'll zoom into, and I'm just really focusing in on Wisconsin, but you can see we start to get to about midday. Line of storms looks pretty intense in the southern half of Wisconsin, but we got a lot of heavy rain and storm activity in southeast Wisconsin, southeast Minnesota also. But we get some heavy rain, even some embedded storms that get all the way into the UP of Michigan this afternoon. So my friends tuning in from that area, you're definitely going to get some washout conditions later this afternoon. And then we'll get some broken lines of storms that will make their way into western Illinois, northern Illinois, even the rest of southeastern Wisconsin as we get into the evening hours. And then most of it just turns into a solid sort of angled zonal flow throughout the rest of the Great Lakes as we make it into tomorrow morning. But just zooming into the state of Wisconsin here, I do want to watch this line of storms that will strengthen potentially about midday through early afternoon. So if you live in La Crosse, Eau Claire, down to Madison, watch out for this line of storms. How intense will it remain as it gets closer to, say, Green Bay? It does lose some steam, but we'll get some heavy rain from this into the UP of Michigan about mid to late afternoon from this also. But I do just want to watch that line of storms and even some additional storms develop. Could be an active afternoon, evening for southern Wisconsin for sure. So we continue to move forward, though. The rest of the western U.S., we got some snow flying around the higher elevations of Wyoming, rain in lower elevations. But outside of that, we will get some thunderstorms that will try to develop sort of in the, let's take a closer look at this. In the southwestern U.S., This is this afternoon, and you can see just splotches of rain out here in Southern Cal, northern Arizona especially, and even New Mexico. We just got areas of rain dancing around. Monsoon season creeping a little bit closer, so this becomes a little bit more common as we get pushes of moisture from the Pacific and things like that, and just the southern latitudes. But temperatures, big temp gradient here in the middle of the country because of rain-cooled air, but you get away from that. I mean, everybody's warming up. All the way into lower Michigan, 80s. Michigan will be a weird state where the UP, the western UP, will be jammed into the 50s more than likely, but the lower Michigan area will get well into the 80s. Northeast, a phenomenal day, 60s and 70s. Mid-Atlantic, 70s and 80s. Southeast, 80s and some low 90s. And then temperatures out west, there's a big dome of cooler air with lower pressure overhead, but the southwest still warming up nice, but no extreme cool temperatures or hot temperatures out here. Severe weather days to come. This is for tomorrow. Does not look like a huge day, but we do have a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5 across the southern high plains up into the front range here. And then we do have a level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather for areas of the Midwest, southern sections of the Ohio Valley, all the way up into Detroit and southeast lower Michigan. So right now, just run-of-the-mill type stuff. Let's look at the tornado threat here. Nothing too crazy, even below a 2% risk of a tornado as of now, but just risk of some gusty winds and some hail in these areas. We get into day 3, that same severe weather threat for areas in the Midwest begins to shift into New England for Thursday, which is what this is, Thursday. So if you live up in interior sections of New England, you do have a risk of severe weather. And then a zonal flow sets up over the southern tier of the country and central areas. So we do have a slight risk for southern Kansas, good chunk of Oklahoma, into the high plains of Texas and panhandle of Texas. So level 1 out of 5 risk of severe weather surrounds it. So we just kind of have to watch this day. As of now, we just know 15% risk of any severe weather. So now what's changed is if we look at day 4, we have a slight risk already, level 2 out of 5. For basically southeast Colorado through the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, southwest areas of Kansas, right through the entirety pretty much of Oklahoma, through southern Missouri, central and northern Arkansas, all the way into, it pretty much gets all the way east of the Mississippi, western Tennessee, northern Mississippi, even areas of Alabama, Kentucky, and southern Illinois. Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather, zonal flow setting up. So all we know right now is that there's a 15% risk of any severe weather. And then day 5, kind of a similar setup, except it shifts a little bit further south and a tick east. So this is for Saturday. This is for Friday. This is for Saturday. So already at day 5, they have a slight risk of severe weather. We'll continue to watch this, but really the pattern is quite simple. Honestly, we start off Thursday afternoon. You see this area of blue and purple, things like that. Don't really focus on the flow and knots, but just, think of this as flow in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, about 18,000 feet up in the air. And as we start to get from Thursday into Friday, you start to just see just flow riding over this same area that has the risk of severe weather for Friday. And then we get into Saturday. Same thing. Flow kind of surging across this area of, the southern plains and the mid to deep south. And then we get into Sunday and it, gets a little bit different. We kind of have this trough that digs down to the middle of the country. But I do see us having a risk of strong to severe thunderstorm activity for the deep south for Sunday as the flow shifts down here. Up here, a little bit more drier air. But if you look at dew points, this flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere will be overlapping a moist environment. These are dew points for Thursday afternoon and evening, 60s, 70s, very moist environment. Then we get into that Friday. Same thing, moist environment, flow overlapping this region right here, going right over this area. Okay. And then we continue to move forward and we get into Saturday. Okay, Saturday afternoon, moist air mass still chilling in the same area pretty much. Okay, flow kind of riding right over this moist air mass. So overlapping conditions, we're going to get severe weather. Now, as far as low-level features that will enhance like the tornado threat, probably not going to get a whole lot of strong versions of that or features, if you will, but certainly will support a low-end tornado threat at minimum. But looking at our update on the tropics, let's see if we have a new update. And we don't. But right now, so this is new from yesterday, I would say. So not super new, but there is a 10% risk of a tropical depression or a named storm forming over the next 7 days. A 10% risk. I could see this bumping up to a 20 in the next update here in the next hour or so, or sometime today. But right now is the time I'm making this video, around 7:15 a.m. There's a 10% risk of a tropical depression or storm developing in the next 7 days. Remember, her first name is Andrea, not Andrea. I think it's pronounced Andrea. So based off the what I saw on the hurricane site. So it's interesting. It's getting to that time of the year. Nothing too crazy to worry about. But if we actually look at the satellite, we got all that rain dancing around Florida and the Bahamas. But you can see some cold cloud tops with thunderstorm development down here popping off, especially in Cuba, areas of the Bahamas, and pretty much off the southern tip of Florida. So what we watch for is if some of this energy can kind of consolidate, get its act together, develop some sort of low-level circulation, and then eventually develop something. Strong doubts that it will. That's why there's only a 10% risk, but a lot of energy sort of just hanging out over some of the open waters down here. Now, if you look at sea surface temperatures, they're getting warm. It's early June still, and we haven't had a super hot start to summer across this area in the southeast, so we haven't warmed up things substantially. It's certainly not below average, I would say, but you got this tongue of warmer air. This is what we call the Gulf Stream off the coast of the southeast, and this is in Celsius. Remember, we have to convert it to Fahrenheit. There's not a lot of sea surface temperature maps out there that shows in Fahrenheit, but this is in Celsius, so 27, 28 degrees Celsius is equivalent to around 80-ish degrees. Some areas are going to be in the upper 70s, some in the low 80s. It's certainly warmer in the Gulf. And as you get down into the Caribbean, we're definitely well into the low to, in some cases, the mid 80s when you convert these Celsius temperatures to Fahrenheit. So this is the area we're watching right here. So your sea surface temperatures hanging out in the upper 70s, maybe 80, 81 degrees. So it would support some tropical development, but not explosive tropical development, right? But if you look at, say, the Euro, starting off this morning, all you're going to see is blobs of green, orange, and red. But you're going to see just this area sort of dancing around down here, and you can look at the time frame. This is in Zulu time, but we get into Wednesday morning, big area of moisture sort of off the coast of the southeast, and more than likely we'll have a lot of moisture into coastal areas of Georgia too. But, we start to get into tomorrow afternoon. This kind of influx of moisture will begin to impact a lot of areas of land, like Georgia, getting into low country of South Carolina, still impacting Florida, could get thrown all the way into Alabama. And eventually, as we're getting into Thursday morning, this is really the time frame I watch. We got moisture sort of getting thrown into the Carolinas, maybe some gusty winds along the coastal areas, and it actually develops like a weak low right here. And this is Thursday midday, next couple days. So we just got some energy hanging around. It's just something to watch, kind of prep us for hurricane season. Nothing overly concerning. But another great way to look at this is the low-level VORT map, low-level energy VORT map. So 850 millibars, about a mile above our heads. And what you're going to see is just kind of slashes of yellow, orange, and red. This is energy in the low levels of the atmosphere. And what we watch for is these little wind barbs, they begin to kind of rotate here. And they rotate this way in the northern hemisphere, lower pressure. So we have to see if anything kind of consolidates. And sure enough, the surface map that we just showed you matches kind of the low-level vortice map here. We got some sort of low pressure that kind of develops around South Carolina off the coast here. So something tries to get going. If I put this in motion, you can quite literally see a little bit of a spin. And then it kind of marches on off. Now, I'm not going to go through and compare all model guidance. Almost all model guidance does show something like this. I like the Euro at this range with certain things like this. Considering the fact that, if you switch it to the GFS, for example, guys, this thing, and let's see if it's still showing it this morning. The GFS has just consistently been showing a hurricane developing in the Caribbean or Gulf here and then surging north. And let's see if it still shows it this morning. Looks like it's finally backed off. Wow, congratulations, Gio. No, well, there it is. Develops a hurricane in the Western Caribbean. So, never mind. It's still just doing its thing. just be careful what you believe out there with this mess, guys. The GFS is not great. It's not great at long range, really anything. It can sniff out a pattern, but with tropics, I don't know. But if we look at how much rainfall could fall between now and around 8 a.m. Sunday, it shows the wet pattern. Remember, I've been showing you this kind of graphic. I'm a little bit more zoomed in compared to the graphics I've showed you over the last several days. But, you know, I've been showing you this graphic over the last few days, and we've inched the axis of heavier rainfall predicted. The amount of rainfall predicted, we've inched it a little bit closer to the coastline, and now it's inland as far as how much rainfall is predicted, that heavier amount. So now, you know, along the coastal areas of Georgia, South Carolina, the North Carolina, they're calling for over 2 to 3 inches of rain between now and 8 a.m. Sunday. And so they've definitely increased that compared to the last couple of videos if you've been tuning in. And I will take a closer look at, say, the North Carolina coastline. As you can tell down here, a lot of rain could get pushed all the way up into Fayetteville, Greenville. I mean, not ground-busting totals or anything like that, but certainly a good bit. And we look at Florida between now and 8 a.m. Sunday, most of Florida is going to get soaked. So we're kind of putting dents in this drought down here. So I'm not worried about this at all, guys. I'm really not. But sometimes these things can be sneaky and take a name early in hurricane season. We've seen it a lot, and it just wouldn't shock me at all. And I'm never going to say never. If you ask me, hey, Mitch, do you think that this is going to become a tropical storm? I would say no, but I wouldn't sit there and like rule out the possibility of it happening. That's for sure. So that's all I got. Excuse me, hiccups there. That's all I got. Now let's give you guys a Bible devotion. Instead of flipping frames there, I actually stopped the video, so that's why it's a little glitchy right there. But this morning, Romans chapter 8, verse 18. Romans chapter 8, verse 18. It says, for I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is going to be revealed to us. And that really spoke to me. I was looking at this even yesterday, not just this morning, but yesterday. And I did write a couple things down. I'll speak on what I wrote down. Well, I'll tell you guys what I wrote down, then I'll speak on it. But I wrote, the tough times of this life are insignificant compared to the joy and blessings to come. I encourage you guys to pray that you have more faith during those sufferings of life. You know, don't just go to God and pray that it all can go away, right? Pray that you can gain experience from those tough times to handle the next obstacles a little bit better. And I'll speak on that before I tell you guys the next thing I wrote. But, you know, for me, for example, with the prayer part, I don't sit there, and I used to, and I still do it, and it's okay to do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it, but I think I encourage you guys to add this in it too. You know, when I'm going through some things, like I've been going through some things, I can see the squirrels running off my house. When I'm going through some things, guys, like I've been, obviously, over the last several days, I've been mentioning to you guys, our AC's out right now. Thankfully, we have a nice, cool 59-degree morning. But you know, had some hiccups with moving everything. Our AC went out, dogs chewing up cords. But, you know, I built up a little anxiety about it, a little bit of just irritation about it. And, you know, that mindset of, you know, woe is me can kind of slip in. But, you know, sometimes I'm really bad about letting a lot of the little things add up, and those things give me anxiety, right? And I think we all have been there, done that. But one thing that as I've grown in faith is I've just realized just to pray, not that all these things will go away or stop happening. I would like for them to, but I pray that I can handle these situations better, because if I sit there and I pray that all of it will go away and I don't take anything away from the situation as far as how I handled it. For example, when all this stuff is over with, here in about a week or two, I'll probably look back on how I handled the last several days, and I'll probably say, hey, you probably could have done a lot better with your mindset and what you were thinking and just being down about it. So, you know, I encourage you guys, and this is what I do, you know, to pray just to handle those situations better. So when the next inevitable suffering or obstacle or valley is like what I like to call it happens, you can handle it better. You can get through those times better, have increased faith, and rely on God more. Because if you just wish it away really fast and, oh man, I feel a lot better, it's not happening, then the next thing happens and you handle it the same exact way. Lack of faith. And just, I know that this kind of escapes a little bit of scripture and everything like that, but it kind of intertwines in, if you will. So, and obviously we don't want to just, in general, just get so hung up on the things that happen in life. Now, this kind of leads me into this. Some people are going through some really bad stuff. Sometimes I'll read stuff online, and these people, they have little girls, little boys, little kids that just, have tumors, that have cancer. Their kids have terminal cancer. They're likely not going to make it. They need a miracle. And it seems like I've read a lot of this over the last several days, and I think it's God speaking to me, adding perspective. And that's the next thing I wrote. Consider perspective. Someone is always going through a more challenging time than you. And yeah, that honestly makes me feel convicted a bit, when I'm sitting there and I'm stressing about dumb stuff like my AC being out or my dog eating my cord, when at the end of the day, I'm the one that decided to get a husky. And trust me guys, I'm not mad at my husky. In fact, I didn't even get mad at him at all. He he's my buddy. We love Copper so much. But I knew it was coming. I knew something was going to happen, and mentally I thought I was prepared for it. But when it happened, I was like, man, this stinks, But you just perspective. Someone out there really, really wishes they can replace. I wouldn't say they want you to have a sick kid, but you get what I'm saying. They would love to be in your shoes compared to what you're going through and what they're going through. So. Sorry to go off for several minutes there. I get passionate about this sometimes, but I'm speaking on this a lot because I'm speaking to myself too, guys. And we can all help each other get better, pray for one another. And I love you guys. I love this community. Appreciate y'all so much. And that's all I got. You guys have a wonderful day. Make the best out of it, out of whatever situation you may be in. Like I said, you got any prayers, put it in the comments below, please, guys, so we can all pray over it. That's all I got. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning. God bless.